He is 41 years old. He's coming off a 5.19 ERA. He dealt with a thumb injury for much of 2025. And even so, he looks into the camera and says, with that almost stubborn confidence, "I feel good. I feel healthy. I just want to pitch." Max Scherzer says he'll be ready for opening day 2026. Less than a week after re-signing with the veteran made it clear that the thumb injury is behind him. According to he stated he's healthy. And it wasn't a routine, scripted answer. It was direct, simple, almost impatient. "I just want to pitch." And when you hear that from Scherzer, you know it's not empty talk. The central fact is this. The Blue Jays will have Max Scherzer available to start the season. He even plans to throw multiple innings against this Saturday in spring training, as reported by Now pause, because there's a detail here that changes everything. He's not saying maybe. He's not saying we'll monitor it. He's saying he'll be ready to compete, ready to take the ball at the start of the year. And that changes how we look at this rotation. When the contract was announced, 1 year, $3 million guaranteed, with incentives that could push it to $10 million. Many saw it as a controlled gamble. A short-term deal, low financial risk, high symbolic upside. But almost no one talked about what was truly at the center of the discussion. The risk wasn't the money. It was the body. Scherzer is 41. In 2025, he made 17 starts and finished with a 5.19 ERA. He dealt with a thumb issue for much of the season. That's not minor. A throwing hand injury affects command, spin, confidence. And even so, he was the one who started Game 7 of the World Series against for Toronto. Think about that for a second. A pitcher with an ERA over 5. A veteran managing an injury. And when the season hit its breaking point, he got the ball. That doesn't happen by accident. And this is where the conversation gets interesting. Because this isn't just about numbers. It's about context, gravitas, clubhouse presence, October weight. But what if that's not exactly the issue? The Blue Jays rotation already had established names. Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Dylan Cease, Trey Yesevich, Cody Ponce, and Shane Bieber, who's dealing with forearm fatigue but is expected back at some point during the season. That's not an empty rotation. That's real depth. So the uncomfortable question is different. Is Scherzer arriving as a central piece or emotional insurance? On paper, he's depth. In reality, nobody signs Max Scherzer expecting neutrality. He isn't neutral. He's intensity, presence. That frozen stare at Rogers Center when the game tightens and the crowd starts to rise. And here's the key detail. If he's truly healthy, as he claims, the internal dynamic shifts completely. With the thumb healed, the 5.19 ERA loses some isolated weight. Injury isn't an automatic excuse, but it's not irrelevant either. If it affected command or spin rate, that directly impacts performance. Now he says it's completely behind him. No restrictions. Multiple innings in spring against the Phillies. That's not slow rehab. That's preparation for real workload. And Blue Jays fans know how March works in Dunedin. Nobody pushes innings if the arm isn't responding. Look at the bigger construction. Gausman is stability. Berrios is a controlled roller coaster. Cease raises the ceiling. Yesevich and Ponce add layers. Bieber should return at some point. So where does Scherzer slot in? Theoretically, he could be the 5th starter. Practically, do you label a 3-time Cy Young winner as your 5th? Or do you admit the rotation has 6 legitimate options? And someone may get squeezed depending on performance? That's where it heats up. Depth is great until it becomes an innings conflict. If everyone stays healthy, the Blue Jays will have decisions to make. And we're not talking about fringe arms. We're talking contracts, expectations, competitive egos. And then there's the human element. Scherzer didn't come back out of charity. He came back because he believes he can still compete at a high level. The club brought him back because they know what he represents in the clubhouse. In 2025, even with a 5.19 ERA, he took the ball in the biggest game of the year. That says a lot about internal trust. But trust doesn't guarantee April performance. Let's flip the logic. What if the real value of this signing isn't what he does in May, but what he means in September? There's something different when you look at a rotation and see a name that's been through everything. 3 Cy Young Awards. October pressure. Long seasons. Rogers Center feels that. The fans feel that. But baseball is ruthless with age. 41 isn't a footnote. The margin for error shrinks. Recovery changes. Adjustments become constant. A small discomfort becomes a headline. That's why a statement carries weight. I feel healthy. It's not just a quote. It's positioning. He's saying, Judge me by what I do now, not by what I did while injured. And the Blue Jays need that to be true. Because 2026 doesn't begin in October. It starts cold. It starts with internal pressure. It starts with the expectation of sustained contention. Repeating is always harder. Toronto fans have seen what it's like to get close. They've felt October pulse in Canada. The standard has risen. So when you bring back a veteran who opened a Game 7, you're signaling that you want to maintain that standard. But let's be honest. If he posts another ERA north of 5, resume won't matter. History won't matter. The debate will get loud. And Toronto is not a market that ignores performance. Now imagine the opposite. Healthy thumb, command sharp, experience intact, 6 competitive innings with consistency. Add that to Gausman, Cease, Berrios, and suddenly the rotation isn't just deep. It's intimidating. That's when the league takes notice. Because it's not just about the number of arms. It's about balance, variety, the ability to survive 162 games and still have something left in October. A healthy Scherzer changes that equation. There's another layer few mention. It's a short deal. 1 year. Low base. Incentives up to $10 million. That creates natural motivation. Every inning counts. Literally. He's not protected by a long-term contract. He's competing for value, for legacy, for the final narrative of his career. That tends to extract maximum intensity from a veteran. But intensity doesn't protect tendons. And we're back to the central point. Is the thumb truly behind him? He says yes. The club is acting like yes. Spring training will start providing real evidence. But nobody will relax until he strings together starts without pain. Now think about the emotional impact in the clubhouse. A group with Gausman, Berrios, Cease, young arms, and possibly Bieber returning. Having Scherzer healthy in that mix isn't neutral. It's a reference point. The guy who says little between starts, but when he speaks, everyone listens. The Blue Jays are betting on that. Not just the arm, the symbol. And Canadian fans understand symbols. But they also understand performance. So here's the raw summary. If healthy, Scherzer raises the competitive ceiling of the rotation and provides real depth for the grind of the season. If the thumb resurfaces, it becomes unnecessary pressure on a group that already has enough talent. Simple as that. No romanticizing. Now the question echoing inside Rogers Center. Are we watching the final chapter of a future Hall of Famer who still wants to write something meaningful in Toronto, or just a nostalgic extension of a historic name? The answer starts Saturday against the Phillies. Multiple innings. No excuses. The Canadian cold hasn't truly arrived yet, but the narrative already has. And in Toronto, we don't ignore narrative. Drop your thoughts. Is a healthy Scherzer a decisive reinforcement or an emotional bet?